Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special edition of Podnutz Pro. I am your host, Marvin B. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode of Podnutz Pro is sponsored by NetAlly. If you're here, you would know that because you saw the promotion for the live podcast with NetAlly. You signed up, and this is what we are doing today. I am joined by the Chief Technology Officer at NetAlly, James Kokoski. You will remember him from an episode that we did last year, episode 180, where we talked about the handheld tools back when it was NetScout. And we have been working on this for, a good few months in trying to get this set up. But basically, a lot of things have happened, and we are now here to talk about a couple of the tools, and it is going to be great. And with that, let me go ahead and get James in here. James, unmute yourself, join the show here, get out of the green room, and say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here, Marvin.
All right. So folks, if you are watching this during the live show, you'll notice that James does not have video. We had a little mix up there where he's not at a place where he has video. If you're listening to the audio, doesn't really matter, but here we are. So just in case you're wondering why you don't see James, that is why there. So James, let's just get right into this because we have a lot of stuff to cover and we only slotted an hour for this. So let's see what we got. First thing I probably should let everybody know is most people have followed me when I started doing the podcast because I have been using these tools way back when they were called Fluke and through NetScout. And we talked about that on the last show. So one of the first things we should probably do is talk about who is NetAlly, because a lot of people don't really know the name. So why don't we start with that?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen in. And here we go. How's that? Yeah, so NetAlly, new name, but basically the same cast of characters. We see our new logo here. Our mantra is basically simplicity, visibility, and collaboration. And let's see here. You know, I've been with the business actually since '95, you know, we've gone through our changes through as an independent startup, and then acquired by Fluke, then become Fluke Networks, then Fluke Networks got bought by a holding company, a larger company, who then spun us off with a bunch of other companies as a group, and then to NetScout, and we ran there from 2015 through 18. And then the tools were just orthogonal to everything NetScout was trying to do, because everything they did was rack-mounted solutions, and so they sold us off, and so we're now an independent company. So, but basically, same people, same product, same mindset, same customer base, right? We retained all the customers from the past. If you were in Link Live, whether you joined Link Live as Fluke Networks or NetScout or new as NetAlly, it's all the same. So so none of that has changed. You know, we've got this long history of innovation, and I work with about 30 engineers on delivering these products, and and kind of what's happened, and you'll see here is the business was a bit siloed, right? We tended to have kind of the wired test side and occasional products that did wired and Wi-Fi, but we also tended to have the Wi-Fi side, and really as we become one unit, we've got a more of a single focus, and that's to deliver more integrated tools and kind of one consistent set of measurements and functionality across all of our tools. And you'll see that when we get to the Etherscope demo, that we've done a lot of work to integrate sort of the best of air magnet technologies, in this case Airwise, as well as the best of some of our high-end discovery tools from the wireline side. So we'll get into that a little bit more later. Uh, let's see, lastly, so the current lineup on the tool side, though, looks like this, right? We have the Link Sprinter, which actually, we launched as is now in its second rebranding, but basically the same inside. Link Sprinter, LinkRunner AT, LinkRunner G2, which we talked about last time, we'll talk about a little bit today, the AirCheck G2, and the Etherscope, which we just launched a little over a month ago. So this is the current portfolio on the tests on the tool side, and I think and that's about it. Like I said, the mantras, we're trying to make our tools simpler, reduce complexity, make them easy to use. We realized for some folks they're not the daily driver, and so you got to be able to pick it up and go. Visibility, I'll show you some of this, just our ability to really see through what's going on in the network, and collaboration, which largely means that the expert is not in the same room in many cases and needs to be able to have direct access to the instrument screens or captures or things like that. So anyway, that's about it on the company.
All right. So James, I do have a quick question because there was something noticeably missing out of the product lineup. There is no longer a one-touch on there. Is that going?
Yeah, yeah, good observation. Yeah, so the one touch, the one touch was a bit of a period piece, right? It was actually we started I think in 2012, 2013. At that point, we were Fluke Networks, and they were, and a large part of the business was in the cable test side. And at that point in time, the best thing for the business was to leverage this common chassis, this platform, the Versiv platform, and have different modules that went into the back of it. As we broke apart for them, we basically had to create our new mid-end platform. The nice thing is we're also a little bit constrained by their industrial design needs, kind of on the cable test side. So the Etherscope in particular is kind of our first race-tuned, full industrial design, mechanical design, all by us, purpose-built for doing combined wired Wi-Fi testing. So the one touch was good, but we just are end of lifing it, over these next 6 months or so.
Okay. So when we talk about this new lineup now that includes the Etherscope, was this inspiration born out of the time that it got spun off to NetScout? Because that's about the time that the Link Sprinter showed up, right?
Yeah. So the Link Sprinter, we were actually Fluke for well over a year with Link Sprinter. What actually happened is there was another product that you don't see in here, the OptiView XG. So Fluke had this $30,000-$40,000 legacy sort of product that was the previous all-in-one integrated. In fact, it was called the INA, the Integrated Network Analyzer. And so that was with NetScout. They are also end-of-lifing that. So there's really kind of a vacuum right now at the top end. And really, when you look at both of those products, they really struggle to combine the best of Wi-Fi and the best of wireline. So in the Etherscope, a product that's barely bigger than the LinkRunner, we've not only got 10 gig fiber, 10 gig copper, N-base-T being the new 2.5 and 5 gig link speeds, largely for APs, high power PoE loading, as well as multiple Wi-Fi radios and all that. And so what's interesting about the OptiView, though, is we took core pieces of the technology we were allowed to bring with us. That was part of the arrangement. And so in particular, there's something in there called the Discovery Library, which I'll actually be demoing here in 20 minutes or so that really does an amazing job of sweeping your entire network and understanding everything that's out there and presenting it in a very usable way. Uh,
All right. So just to get everybody on board with what our hope and goal is today is that we are going to review the LinkRunner G2 and the new Etherscope NXG. This is not going to be obviously a full-fledged demo. These tools are way too complex to try to get in 2 in 1 hour, let alone 1 in 1 hour. There is a great trainer out there by the name of Mike Pinacki. He has also been on a previous podcast with me. He does some great boot camps, and we will try to get you some links for those in the show note, that if you want to get a full deep dive into these products, you'll want to hook up with Mike Pinacki at Network Protocol Specialist. But today we're just going to do a brief overview of the tools and see if we can explain, at least from my perspective, why I use them so much. So, all right, James, where do you?
yeah. Yeah, so let me go ahead and see. So if my screen is still shared, of course, the little pop-up thing is always right where the icon you want to touch is. Let's get that out of there. Okay, there we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the LinkRunner G2 screen, and this we're particularly looking at here is auto test. This is sort of our ground zero for testing, and the LinkRunner G2 is a wireline tool. It's a 1 gig copper or fiber network tester that includes PoE testing. And so it does support Wi-Fi through a little USB radio, but it's not really a Wi-Fi test product. The Wi-Fi radio is nice. It gives you connectivity if you're in a coffee shop and you want to pull your next trouble ticket or use the Chrome browser or something like that where you're not wired in. It's a sort of a connectivity radio more than a test radio. But I'll go ahead and let me just restart an auto test here. So so we start out at the top and we start. Let me make sure my cable's in there, right?
And just to give people out there an idea, if you already have the linked sprinter, this is basically a linked sprinter on steroids that does a lot of the same things when it comes to the auto test and the cable testing.
Yeah, hang on here. Of course, I'm having the demo, play to the demo. There we go. So yeah, you can see we start up, we run. First thing we're doing here at the top is PoE testing. We'll load up to 71 watts. Then we do link, speed, and duplex. One feature of this product is it does check for downshifts. And so if we can't link a gig, but the switch is advertising gig, we would make this icon yellow. Something we added recently was VLAN capability, and this is where previously if you were plugging into a trunk port, you had no visibility into what VLANs were present, and these would be the VLANs that you would join as a part of testing. And so you can see we're showing you the top VLANs here, and in fact, particularly I've joined VLAN 508 in this particular case. Here is the switch information. In this case, we're getting the advertisement through CDP, voice VLAN, all those things, IP address. Refresh is something we've also added where if you're in sort of a multiple advertisement, let's see if I can catch a different advertisement here. I can't because this is actually a, hang on, maybe one will come in this time.
In there as well is that it tells you exactly which port you're in. So if you're just plugging into a wall jack on the other side of a building, you'll know what port you are on which switch.
Yes, yeah.
Fully
Yep. Yeah, correct. So yeah, that's right here. There's different vendors use different encodings, but basically this is on the switch cost dev switch 1 at this IP address. It's also a Cisco 9300 48 port switch. We are in port 42 in this case, and we learned that through CDP. And so and then switch. Next up is DHCP. This is the process of getting an address. We sent a discover. This gives you a sense of how long it took to get the information, what the least time is, server and subnet. DNS, what servers we are this interface is serving up, and what the response times are to them. Uh, and then the gateway, and this is our router here in the lab, response times, and then also another thing we do. This is a public facing IP. So one of the advantages of pushing these results to the cloud is that when we tell it we got them, we know we send back the public facing IP. So this is basically when we hit the internet, what address we had on this particular test. And some of these tests down here have this continuous mode here. That's just that you can, if you're having some intermittent capabilities, you can just sort of sit here and drop it into this mode, go get a cup of coffee, and get some sense of how it's performing continuously. And then we have our tests, which are basically either ping or TCP port open close tests. And again, continuous is there. And then last, we push the results to the cloud. Some people like a little more of a graphical view of exactly what the direct connect topology is. So we have this switch. This is just sort of a tabbed view here. We have the switch view here, which is how PoE is being delivered and what the voltage is, and that. Also, of course, there's a full set of cable tests, including wire mapping. In fact, let me kind of end this. Well, before I do that, let me show you the rest of the active things. We also in the tool we have these things called profiles, and the idea here is that you can predefine tests, whether it's the targets that you're going to, the VLANs, whether or not you're expecting PoE or not. This is the particular profile I'm on here now. Here's settings for all the things you can control, IPv6 testing, duplex. You can hardwire it at different speeds in duplexes. The PoE is all the different classes, right? And one thing we also added recently was measuring injector voltages. So you can see a pretty robust set of settings. And then two other features. The reason I came over here was this VLAN monitor, and this is a there we go. It's resyncing. Yeah. So this is where we're just looking at the trunk port and telling you what VLANs we're seeing just by monitoring all the frames. And we can see the just kind of a mishmash of stuff here. This is one of our more VLAN intensive ports, but so VLAN monitor. And then lastly, we have a reflector that's for doing performance testing. This is a gigabit line rate reflector. And then last, you have a capture feature here where you can capture frames. You can choose to slice them off, and then the capture we could just push right up to Link Live, and anybody anywhere can grab it down. And then the last thing I'll show here is the cable test. Let me plug into a little more of a meaningful cable here. All right, so here's a cable test running, and in this particular case, I have an open on pin 1 at 8 feet, and the rest of the cable 61 feet. So what you sort of read this as well after the patch cable, right? The first, I got a couple meter patch cable. As it goes into the wall, pin 1 appears to be open. So pretty much, between the cable test, the auto test, and a lot of other things, and then of course, since we run Android. I'll come back to the home screen here. There's any number of other apps here. So I use, you can look at YouTube videos. Of course, we got the flashlight camera, QR code reading if you want to do that, Cisco technical information. But here's an example of an app. This is one that's actually using the audio. In fact, there's me whistling at 1300 hertz. So, but basically there's a lot of different vendor apps here you can use. And I can even swipe over, right? I can build out as many pages of this stuff as I want. I've got a brother label maker. I can take and cut anything off of the screen, an IP address or a switch name, and shoot it out to my label printer. I can run a serial terminal in for doing provisioning, run other apps, manufacturer apps, things like that. And of course Chrome browser and all that. Yes.
Outlook is an app that I use, and
Yeah.
if I get a, for instance, the last week, I actually went out and did a cable test and took a screenshot of the test, threw it in an email, sent it off to the cable guy, all right from the link runner. So, people ask, why spend so much for, a cable tester? Well, this is much more than a cable tester.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. In fact, that's a good point about the. Let me, if I go back over to the auto test here. Yeah, in fact, one of the things you can do, since it is Android, is I can take this screenshot here. I'll just do the volume down left button. There we go. Now there's the screen capture, and you can see I've got this little icon up here. I can just come up here to this guy and say share, and I can share into anybody any other app that I want to do. So I could share to email or PDF generator or whatever, but in this case, I'll pick LinkRunner G2, and I'll go ahead and save that to the last test result. And so if we came over here now to Link Live, our crowd portal, and there's another aspect of not only can you add comments to tests, like I can say, hello, and here, let's see, oops, oh, well,
By
close
the
enough.
way, I did not do those tests. That name up there is just my folder, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I did was we have a thing called a job comment. You see, right? Oops, sorry, I killed that display. Let me come back to there. Yeah. So we have a thing called a job comment, and the idea is that you want to batch a bunch of stuff together. In fact, you can kind of see where I just started doing Marvin stuff, just about 20 minutes ago, right? And I decided on both of my testers, Etherscope and LinkRunner, to go ahead and set a job comment. The real intent of this is, hey, I'm just starting a job for this particular company, or I'm doing the moves as changes in the East Wing or whatever, and you set that, and then that tag gets put on every activity that you do in that tester. So so that later on I could just come in here and type, now let me get rid of this. So now that you see where the job comment's in, so here's that result that we pushed up. Here's the screen capture that I just saved up, but I could have thrown out an email. And then of course I could right click this and copy it and, and blow it into an email that way. Uh, but, uh, but also then on the search side, anything in here I could search for. So I could start to type MAR, and it says, hey, you got 5 Marvins, and now I'm just down to 5 Marvins, and I could then come over here and say, hey, I'm going to generate a PDF report of that. And so and then we kind of build up these filter chips here, and so but at the same time you can click on anything here. If I wanted to see all tests that I've done on this particular switch in the past, I just click on that. We put a filter chip up here, and you can see all my tests over time, all the way back to October, probably further back than that, on this particular switch. So really easy, and everything we do push to the cloud, and then right up there you basically can click, filter, generate reports, send out emails, generate CSV files if that's your thing, and all that. So I'll go ahead and kill that comment. So yeah, that explains Marvin here, which is just that I put a job comment on both testers, and then later on, for whatever reason, I could just quickly find all those results.
Right. So perfect for setting up jobs for particular clients or particular scopes of jobs for clients that you can group everything together. And as you can see, you've got over 4,000 items in there. So you can keep a super long history of all the testing that's ever been done, so that if there's a change in an environment and somebody says, hey, well, what happened? You can go back, pull up all the test histories for that client or job and be able to search that in Link Live. One of the great things about Link Live, and the fact that Link Live is free.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We also allow folder storage, right? I could build out a hierarchy here of different ways to group things together if I had a per customer basis, if I was like a managed service provider. But the search is super powerful because it's just across everything, right? Speed, all these are searchable things. If I type, I think if I start to type 508, and you see everything that it looks anywhere in any of the items, and so it shows me all that. So and then as I mentioned, what's kind of nice is this stuff is stackable too. So this will be a little bit boring, but I can basically come in and say, on this VLAN at this speed, with this address, and you can just stack these up any way you want. Yeah, super powerful slicing, dicing, and just these nice things here. Show me all my tests with errors. Show me all my tests with errors during this time period. Show me all my tests with errors during this time period on this switch. Just very, 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 very nice and flexible.
Okay. So I know that people are going to have questions here, but one of the questions I want to get out of the way is we talked about the fact that both the LinkRunner G2 and the Etherscope are Android based, which means you can load up normal apps on them. However, I can't just load up any app, can I?
Yeah, so we curate the apps. We don't want uh, we know people don't want Angry Birds. We've done a lot of work to harden the OS. So and so there's no way to get an app on here but through Link Live. And if you look, in fact, this is the App Store here. Uh, if you look in here, most of these are vendor apps, right? Axis video cameras, uh, port checkers, Aruba apps, trouble ticketing apps, asset management apps, right? So basically, you send an app request into us. It's super easy to do here in the portal, and then we take it, run a couple checks on it, make sure it'll run on the unit, and then we put it up into the App Store and let you know. There is a way for you to put your own private apps up there if you want to go down that route. You are allowed to upload, because we've run into some larger customers that actually have internal Android apps that they've developed, and they just happen to be Android shops, and so they have their own trouble ticketing system or their own whatever. And so yeah, you can put apps up, but kind of the normal sanctioned way is just to request the app, and then we put it up there for you.
All right. And there are a lot of apps in there, and a lot of them that you said were vendor specific. I've got some Ruckus apps on there that I use. Of course, the speed test that I use when I go out to do a installation for an ISP. I've got some HP tools, Dropbox, and we talked about Chrome and Outlook and all that. So there is a lot of stuff out there. I know that there's Ubiquity apps. There's a ton of apps in there already.
Yeah, in fact, I think even like the whole Microsoft Windows suite is in here, uh,
Yes, Word.
and yeah, Office Suite. Yeah, uh, yeah. In fact, you can run WebEx on these tools and actually use the audio, be in a meeting, sharing your screen off of these tools, things like that. It's just Android just opened up a lot of opportunities, and the goal here is to get it so you only need one tool and you can do your entire workflow. Uh, off of that single tool. You don't need to drag a laptop and then try to figure out how to move things back and forth between the two. Uh, so uh, yeah, so that's the main goal of Android. And then of course the other aspect of this is it's a clean UI, and it's a UI. Who doesn't know what the hamburger stack's going to bring in a navigation drawer, and so it's just so many people are spending so many hours a day in their phones that it's hard to create a UI that's usable, that doesn't leverage those paradigms. Just like I showed sharing the picture, right? That's just a natural paradigm, and that's another a nice advantage of Android.
Okay. All right. So we're at the halfway point. So let's do our first break. And we mentioned that as part of this live webinar, we were going to be giving away some door prizes. And our first door prize is going to be the $50 Amazon gift card. So, James, if you can unshare your screen just
Yeah,
I'm
I'm trying to. Oh, there we go. Hang on.
going to everybody that registered for the webinar has been entered into this. And I am going to, you hear
No
that?
problem.
That is what I'm going to be sharing here in just a second. So let me get over to the wheel of names. That's what's going to sound like, folks. So here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to share this screen. So everybody that registered for the webinar is entered here.
Holy mackerel! Look at that.
Yeah, a lot of people in here. And I think I should have taken out Jason Miller. Um, well, we'll take our chances and see if he wins. So everybody that registered is here. This is one of those times where you do not have to be present to win. And that was just a rule we made ahead of time. So I've got, I don't know, almost 40 names in there. So if you don't see your name, you must have registered right before. And let me just do a quick check and see if anybody did. Nope, I think I got the last person that registered. And I'm going to do a shuffle and a spin. The first winner today of the $50 Amazon gift card, Garrett Tate. All right. All right. So, Garrett, you will be getting that shortly. And that will be our first winner. So, all right, James. So, we have, let's see, let's go ahead and move over now to the Etherscope NHD. But before we do, I want to make a couple of other mentions that both of these tools, not only are they Android based and you can utilize the apps, they also have features such as a built-in flashlight, built-in camera, so that when you're in a closet and you can't see, you don't have to go looking for a separate flashlight. You don't have to go grab your smartphone and use the flashlight feature on that. You can do all of that from both of these tools as well. You can take the cameras, and I'm going to quickly grab these so you can see them. So in terms of people looking, in terms of the size of them, these things fit in your hand. This one that I'm holding up first, this is the LinkRunner G2, and the LinkRunner, I'm sorry, the Etherscope NHG, just a little bit bigger in terms of size, but still very easily able to be held in your hand and walk around and do all the testing that you need to do. All right.
Yeah, good visual. All right, I'll grab it back on my screen. So the reason the Etherscope's bigger is a variety of things, right? And in fact, if you think about the One Touch as it stood, uh, in the Etherscope, not only is it about a third the size and 3 times the screen resolution, uh, but also we've included what used to be done in 2 separate modules. There used to be a 1 gig and Wi-Fi module, and then there's a completely separate 10 gig module. And so we've included all the 10 gig stuff, all the Wi-Fi stuff, and you can imagine having 10 gig in this small of a package. We need active cooling. We added additional 2 cells. We doubled the batteries for longer life and things like that. So, but still very portable and handheld. So. Uh, uh, and in fact, the product has in it two wired test ports and 2 Wi-Fi ports, 1 test and 1 connectivity. So I'll show a little bit of that. But here you're seeing the home screen on it. And of course, I wish I had a skin that matched the product, but don't. But so one of the things we did is we really, in some of our products in the past, we've had more of a monolithic app, and then you had to go digging around to find different pieces of functionality. One of the things we've done here is really brought the functionality out as separate apps. And you know, because it's really the way we live our lives right now, right? There's a different app for ordering a pizza and ordering a cab, and so so we amplified the functionality to make it easier to get where you want to go. But we didn't lose any of the interactivity between the apps because we use the Android intent system, and that's the system. It's the same system that when anytime you put an app in and then you go to share a picture, suddenly the share knows that, hey, there's a new guy ready to receive that. And so we use that same underlying architecture to share stuff. But kind of starting here at the top, we've got auto test, and you know, you'll see actually it looks, you know, somewhat the same, but to the LinkRunner G2. Now, one of the differences, of course, it'll test 10 gig, it'll test NBASE-T. In fact, you can see this. In fact, let me get my port moved over from my LinkRunner there. That's what I didn't do. But you can see I'm plugged into an NBASE-T switch here. We were able to negotiate a 5 gig. The VLAN stuff, we basically pulled the VLAN monitor in here. It's a hardware-based VLAN monitor in this case. And then one place we have a lot of depth of dive is we do full service tests. So the LinkRunner is more of a connectivity tester, ping and TCP port open. In this case, we we basically pull the entire web page. So here's an example of me pulling Google, and you can see that the connect time was fast. Data start is how long it takes for the server to kind of utter the first HTTP response, and the transfer was fast, and the total time was fast, and you can sort of see that in the response codes here. And so full service tests, things like FTP and HTTP, so that you can really validate that. Another area where it really dives in is like in the setup of this HTTP test is that you can control certain things. And one of the, so you may only want part of the web page or all of the web page. Another interesting thing is this response must contain, must not contain. And there's a bunch of ways to use that. One is that sometimes uh, you hit a captive port. You don't know if you really hit Google or you really hit the website you wanted to. So if you see any screen on that normal website, you can say, hey, must contain that, and enter that string in. And then we make sure that somewhere in the HTTP body that occurs. Or likewise, if you want to make sure that you didn't get shoved off to some other place, you can do must not contains. And you can even say, no, 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 when I hit this website, I need to have this return code, because for security reasons, when I'm on VLAN 500, you shouldn't have access to this server, right? So there's just a lot of ability to almost make it a bit more of a security tester in sort of its auto test depth. Another thing that we do here is in LinkRunner we have single profiles,
Right.
and so you would have to recall a different profile if you wanted to test on multiple VLANs, or if you wanted to, or like in the Wi-Fi case, you want to test multiple SSIDs. Hey, I want to test guest and production, and so in this case, you can basically come in and build out, and I haven't done a good demo version of this, but all the tests. If I hit start here, it would run through every one of these. Now that's a bit onerous, but you can come in here and basically pick what tests you want it to run. And so I could say, hey, you could have a profile group called trunk port test, and it would automatically go and verify VLAN 500 and 501 and 512 and different servers and things like that. And so so I'll disconnect these, get these
So,
guys
James,
out of here.
so
So
I
yeah,
just
go ahead.
I just wanted to go back and let everybody know. So the auto test feature on the Etherscope is pretty much all of what's in the Link Runner, plus all of this extra stuff where you can go in and do these very granular specific tests if you want to test to a website or to a server, and you can specify specifically what you want to test, not just connectivity, not just a TCP ping or something like that. um, that's what you're getting with the Etherscope.
Yeah, a deeper validation of the service, and then kind of the complete tap to glass end user response time by like pulling the whole web page. And what's interesting is, sometimes you hit these things, and the complaint is, well, it's slow, right? And it turns out that it's the data start. It's actually a server problem getting the data started to go to. And you see the actual data transfer is quite short, but it took a while for the server to respond to that request. And uh, so yeah, just sort of deeper service tests. The other thing we did was basically your tests are, we have a pool. You basically have a pool of tests. The other testers. And this is just sort of a refinement of our thinking over time, but used to be you said, here's my profile, and then you define the tests under that. In the Etherscope, you have a pool of tests because sometimes you want to use the same test in multiple auto tests. If you take the time to put in a large URL for an FTP site or something like that, you may want to use that test multiple times. And so, in fact, this is one of my favorite set of tests here. I've I've occasionally had issues with Gmail working in different environments. So I looked at all the different ways to connect to Gmail, and I have those tests here now. Well, I could include those in any profile I'm building anytime, and I wouldn't have to recreate those. So kind of the reusability of the test target definitions and the reusability of the profiles into these profile groups are two ways that we've sort of enhanced the Etherscope over the LinkRunner G2.
All right, so you can select any test for any profile, and then of course you can have as many profiles as you can fit.
Exactly, which is near infinite. So uh, yeah, so anyways, that's auto test, and just to kind of keep us on track here, let's see, I probably should, well, let me go ahead and do this. Let me come back over here since I'm connected there, and let me just start a ping to this guy. Uh, let's see here. Let's go over to him, and I'll just get something going in the background so I can show you the trending
Okay.
uh, in a little bit. I just do want to get a couple minutes worth of data going here.
And
Uh,
another
there we
great
go.
thing is the graphic that you can see with this.
Yeah, yeah, and so I'll show you the trending here in a sec. Uh, so back here at the top, capture, of course, is wired or Wi-Fi capture, and you can come in and like on Wi-Fi, I could say, hey, this channel, this width, I can filter out control data management frames, have it pick up just a specific BSS ID or client MAC, uh, and a lot of the same capability. The capture on the wired side is actually line rate 10 gig. We have an FPGA in here that will do that for us. Discovery is, I mentioned this before, this is a bunch of technology we got out of what was previously a $30,000 product. And so Discovery is basically,
Let
go ahead.
me just say before you start, I got my Etherscope Thursday night, and by Friday I had decided that the Discovery favorite part of the Etherscope.
Okay, yeah, yeah. It's amazing because you can just walk into any site location, plug into anything, and we just take off running, finding every device we can on there. And you can see I got 403 devices here, and any number of sorts here, right? I can sort by device type, and we put the most important switches and routers at the top. I can sort by IP addresses. I can sort and then ascending or descending. Uh, I can sort by names or problems or any of that. In fact, let's see if I even have, oh yes, there's problems there. Uh, so, uh, and because there's a whole, along with this discovery came along a whole set of problem identification stuff. But you might be sitting there going, wow, because this thing will find thousands of devices. And so, uh, how do I slice and dice through all that? Well, it turns out we have this great thing here called filtering, which is all ways of just basically pulling stuff out of the data. So if I zoom in on device type, I can say, hey, let me see the switches, for example, and you can see we built a filter chip here, right? You kind of like we did in Link Live. And if I come out, now I'm looking at my 34 things that are switches. And then I go, wow, maybe that's still a little bit too much. Well, what's nice about this search is it's progressive. Now that I've chosen switches, it will only show me the subnets that have switches on them. So I can say, well, let's go to the 10, I'll go to this one, there's only 3 switches there. And you can see the counts actually got updated here, right? And so now we're saying, show me the switches on this subnet. And if I come back, I've got 3 devices here. Then of course, it's easy to drill in on any one of these. And we have names and addresses and what protocols it's running and functions. Here's all the addresses. This is a pretty robust switch. All the addresses associated with it. Interfaces. In fact, this is one of our main test switches. So tons of VLANs, and then we even have the VLAN names here. Are running on the switch. Interfaces. Go ahead.
Was there a VLAN called Bogus VLAN?
Probably, yeah, yeah. That's just our test network. So you never quite know what you're going to run into. But basically, we're monitoring the switch, the uptime, all the contact information, memory and CPU usage, and then interfaces is kind of the meat of this. So I can sort by interface statuses, and I wonder, I don't know if we have anything that's really that busy right now. Uh, and we don't. I probably should have set that up a little bit better. I'll show you that on the Wi-Fi side. But basically, well, here's one. I could sort interfaces by speed, and I might say, uh, hey, is there any 100 megabit stuff or any 10 megabit stuff? And you can see here's all my interfaces that are linked at 10 megabits, 1 gigabit, and so just as you can see, a lot of ability. And I'm only for any one of these types of devices, there's different things you can do, but switches is one of them. So anyway, this we call it the shopping cart model for filtering uh, because it's the same way you buy shoes like on Amazon, right? Oh, I want men's shoes. Oh, I need dress or athletic. Dress, what black, whatever color, and go in. So everything we know about your network, we make it easier for you to filter on. And then since we take away things that don't make sense once you pick one filter, it makes it even easier. So that's the filtering. One thing we just added, in fact, literally Monday. Is that still yesterday? Yeah. Is this search thing, and this is a free string search where I can just type COS, let's say, since we're Colorado Springs, and I can see everything about basically all the devices that match that string. So we now look across uh, uh, everything, and this, by the way, this doesn't have to be an address. It can be, I could come in here and type oh, I don't know, 192 or what, there's a 191, 192, so there's only one thing with 190, and you can see we'll find it anywhere in there. In fact, if I typed 250, uh, that's uh, anything with there. So any part of any string, and we're searching through MAC addresses, manufacturer prefixes. If I was looking for a particular Huawei or a Dell manufactured device, I could type that in. Names, names being SNMP names, NetBIOS names, MDNS names. And so just this super powerful ability. So whether you want to filter through your inventory or search it, we've got all that capability. Another thing we've added here is maybe you just like, well, you know what, I really need to go through this later. You can just come over here and tap on this guy and say, hey, I want to upload that to Link Live, and I'll go ahead and save that up to my analysis on Link Live. And in fact, if I came over here to boink, there and came into this new analysis section, I would see that there's the discovery. In fact, from 249 just now for me. And I could come in here and click on that. And of course, Marvin's right over my action there. That's okay. So there we go. And then here's the discovery here, and same capability. I can go COS and then start to see all the COS devices. There's a switch. There's the VLANs. I can filter and slice and dice through it, and then generate reports here. Uh, so let me minimize that. So as you can see, real nice synergy here between the product, and if you can just get out and get the snapshot. Another way, when we say collaboration is one of our three operating principles, this is an example of it, right? If you could just have the unit over on the other side of town or on the other side of the country, and the person just basically let it run for a little bit, and then save this discovery up to the cloud, you've now got the snapshot baseline of everything that's there, and you might be able to troubleshoot the problem remotely. So that's discovery. Let me just go into Wi-Fi here. Another thing is Wi-Fi, and here I am. Basically, we've broken Wi-Fi down. Oops, sorry. I'm overlaying my screen here. Sorry. There we go. And so I brought up the Wi-Fi app, and this is everything I've seen on the Wi-Fi side. We have SSIDs, 92 of them, because I work in a Wi-Fi cesspool, and so you can see all of our internal SSIDs that we run for testing and things like that, APs, clients. And so I could come in here, for example, and if I, well, in fact, let me just leave that on utilization for a second. So here I'm sorting by utilization. Here's all of our clients. Let me go ahead and let me switch over to name real quick. Uh, so in fact, this very laptop I'm on is this laptop right here. So I could come over and look at myself. Uh, and you can see all the information, how I'm connected to what AP, BSSID, how I'm connected. But if I came over here to RF traffic stats, I'm now, and one of the things we really put into this product in about 20 different places is trending graphs. And these will trend up to 24 hours. And in fact, if I went back to the Ping app, uh, I've got enough here. I can basically zoom this in, as you can see, and now I'm looking at 10 minutes worth. But this will go 24 hours. You can zoom out, you can pan through, you can pick a particular location and then choose to zoom in on it. So you can see we've got all this trending capability across our performance tests and connectivity tests and all that. But if I were to go back over to Wi-Fi, and I was now looking at my laptop, what I can do here is you can see we're showing the signal to noise since I'm very close to it, right? I'm minus 30 dB since I'm a foot away from it. Very little utilization going on the channel that I'm on here. You can see we're running at 11%, my RX and TX rate, and then retries relatively healthy. Let me go ahead and bring up a speed test. And let's see, let's go here. And I'm going to go ahead and fire up that speed test. Then while that's running, I'm going to go back over here and let's see here. Did it not run the speed test? Maybe I didn't hit the go. There we go.
It goes.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's a little delay there. Okay, yeah. So there you can see my utilization going up. The blue, my client utilization. Since I'm monitoring my client, you can see my utilization went up. Still, relatively healthy. Not too much utilization. Not too much on the retries. Uh, but you can kind of see how we trend that. Like there's a big pocket of, so there's a big pocket of my activity.
Right.
In fact, that must be the downstream side of the test or
Right.
the upstream side.
And this would be
Uh,
perfect for
yeah,
do
go ahead.
that says that hey, this is this desktop isn't working properly or this tablet isn't working properly. Now you can walk in with this handheld tool and through this discovery find the device and start tracing it, and you don't have to actually be right on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, one of the things I skipped over was these are all usually when you do Wi-Fi troubleshooting, you only have a MAC address. But since we're actively running Discovery out of a connected radio, we're probing the network that way and matching up MAC addresses we see in the air, even though the rest of the payload is encrypted, with what we know from our Discovery side. In fact, my S10 here is grayed out. I think if I'll risk this, if I turn this on now. Hopefully it goes ungray here in a second. And let's see here.
So gray just means that it finds,
Great.
because
Yeah, we've seen it not active at the moment. Yeah. So let's see here.
and this is basically doing both layer 2 and layer 3 searches, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Uh, so in fact, it just went highlighted. You can see the last seen time here. I can be looking at his take a look at his traffic analysis. Uh, all the same stuff. Yeah. So. So yeah, yeah, in fact, now it is solid. But you can see we have all these names for it. Like these are laptops that normally I would only know a MAC address for, right? And I wouldn't have any idea, what else these are. The nice thing about this is now that we have an IP address, you can do a bunch of IP address related things. So let me take my phone, which is now on, and I'm just gonna, when I click on, and these blue underlined guys are links. So I'm going to go from looking at this as a Wi-Fi client to a wired client. And now I have a whole set why don't I have that? Sorry. Let me pick something a little better here. Let me pick my laptop. I'll go back to that. Let's see, go over here, pivot on him, and now, oh, that's right. I didn't set up that interface. I apologize. Uh, Let me come back over here, and let's just grab something we know we can get to. This guy. Um, okay, so Wi-Fi wired. Yeah. So so in the Wi-Fi sense, there's only a limited things you can do with it. You can try to locate it from an RF signal strength basis, things like that. In this case, once we have the IP address, it opens up all of these tools where we can start to do path analysis, ping it, port scans. Port scan is another new feature we just added. Uh, so I'll go ahead and start a port scan here, and and I'm not even sure there's any ports open on this guy. I should have done this on a switch. Let me pop back over here
Right. But again,
to a
the
switch. Go
idea
ahead.
is that you can almost do security testing just by plugging this in, connecting to a wired device, and seeing what ports are open on that device.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, in fact, I'll come over here. I'll do it on this guy. Let's go ahead and start him. There we go. Yeah, so there we're seeing on this particular switch the ports that are open. Yeah, so it gives you a little more of a security thing, uh, connectivity, path analysis is another thing we do. This is how you are connected to it, and I haven't actually played with this in this particular configuration, but let's just give that a go. Uh, so this will basically tell you everything at a layer 2 and layer 3. You know traceroute, right? That's a layer 3 hop thing. In this case, we do layer 2 and layer 3 analysis by mining the switch forwarding table. So I can tell that I went out a particular port here, and then into this router, and then uh, through these two hops here to the end device that I was doing the path analysis to. So you can kind of understand how things are connected in your network. Of course, I can launch a browser against. I'm not sure. Let me try this. I'm not sure if this guy actually is running uh, port 80 was open. I should have looked. Up, can't be reached. Yeah. So, but if you're serving up a telnet or SSH, we can basically get to those things. So yeah, just really a full arsenal of tools under this fab that you can use, like capture, scan, uh, and things like that. So
Yep. So a lot of stuff there. So as you can see, folks, the Etherscope has a ton of stuff, and I want to make sure we get a couple of opportunities for Q&A in here. But I did want to ask one quick question: the discovery feature. So one of the things that I noticed that when I first plugged it in, it almost starts discovering immediately. And the question is going to be: is does it constantly scan and keep discovering?
it does, and in fact, if we were to look at the, let me go to the discovery settings. Uh, there you have a lot of control over that, right? So SNMP, SNMP community strings. You can decide which of the 4 ports on the box you wanted to discover out. So you can limit it and take it all the way down to 0 if you want. If you didn't want it discovering, or if you only wanted it discovering out Wi-Fi or any of that. But one thing I didn't cover was these extended ranges, which is you can actually discover subnets that you're not on, and just by clicking and adding them in. In fact, let's see, I'll put a couple of those in, and come back out. And if I refresh my discovery, it'll start. In fact, you can kind of see this status guy here on the discovery status. I should point that out. That's this guy right here. That's how far we are in the discovery process. But I've added these additional subnets, and I would now be discovering devices on that subnet. So because a lot of times, you have different subnets, and so literally from one connection, one place, you can discover you can discover sites. I've actually looked at our Everett site sitting here at my desk and seen all the printers, and literally see the printer, it finds the printers, it finds the desktops, and then remote it into things and all that.
All right. So a lot of stuff there. I'm actually just responding to a raised hand in the chat here. If you have questions, I should have let everybody know at the beginning. That's how busy we got here in this hour here. Tiffany Wynn, also of NetAlly, has been responding to questions in the Q&A. And so if you had some questions, it looks like she's answered all of them. If you have questions now, I do want to give a couple of minutes here that if you have a question, go ahead and ask it in the Q&A and we will try to answer them here. So while they're doing that, James, there was one other thing I wanted to note out. So of course, there's obviously the performance and iPerf testing we can do. We really can't jump into that, but these remote options that you have with the Etherscope, you can do real VNC into the Etherscope and kind of, control it from the other side of the office, or if you're connected through VLAN or something, the other side of town.
Yeah, correct. And you can VNC into any port. So you could be testing on a wired network and then have it just hooked up to some other Wi-Fi network and VNC into the Wi-Fi. You can so that's one nice thing. And then what I'll say actually is what's on our short-term roadmap is actually letting you because VNC is good, but if you're very remote, if you're not in the same network, then you have to basically VPN. So we're actually adding a cloud remote feature where basically you'll be able to connect from anywhere into any of the devices in your organization through the cloud, and that's coming up in the spring. So kind of again working the collaboration angle of being able to. If we had time, I could show you these other things. I could see a device, grab a capture, put it up to Link Live, have it down in Wireshark at a remote location, all in a matter of moments. So just a lot of nice workflows. We don't really have the time to explore today.
All right, one quick question that came out of the chat when you showed the discovery of other subnets. The question is wondering if it can discover a network if we don't know all the IP ranges that might be in use.
Yes, in fact, if we one of the things it does, and this is in fact, I'll go over to the discovery settings, and let's see, is that when you go into the extended ranges, uh, when you go to add a new range uh, in here, it will actually show you all the IP addresses, all the ranges, subnets that it has seen while it's been doing discovery, and roughly how many devices are on each of those. And so yeah, if we ever see any of this traffic, then we do include that. And I use this all the time. In fact, another enhancement we're adding to this is that'll be coming up in our next release is that the subnets can be named. Because what happens is I end up with all these subnets in here, and I can't remember what them. And I really want to say, oh, that's Everett, and that's the uh, uh, the APs, whatever. So we're going to make it even easier to keep track of all your subnets and include them in or out of discovery. And then any of these also, any group of settings, if you say, hey, when I discover out these ports on these subnets and these devices with these community strings, I want to save that as Fred, let's say, and that is now a recallable discovery configuration that you can bring back then. So if you're managing multiple sites or have different ways that you run discovery, you don't need to manually set it up every time.
Okay, great. James, let me ask real quick. We are coming up on the allotted time that we had. I know that there's some more questions coming in. So what I want to do is do the second giveaway and end off the official webinar portion. But do you have a few minutes to stay afterwards to answer any additional questions?
I do.
Okay, great. If you could unshare your screen real
All
quick.
right.
And we'll,
Sorry.
ladies and gentlemen, so we are going to end off the actual recording of the webinar here in just a second, but we will stay on and answer any additional questions, do additional showings here. What I need to do is There was a gentleman that says that his name was not in the wheel of names, so I am going to go in right now and make sure that I've got everybody in there. And we've got one more giveaway, which is actually a NetAlly bag o' stuff. And it is, um, I'll show you here. I've actually got my bag here the other day, and there's some NetAlly stuff in there. Some, I'm going to wear these. These are socks. Um, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. I don't have time to go into it here, but that will be given to you from NetAlly. And I was going in here. Let me make sure I get back to the name. And it looks like, let's see, do I have everybody here? I know this is great for audio if you're not paying attention there, but let's see here. There, and in the chat, who was that? Raphael. Doobie 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 doo 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 doo. Maybe Mike Panaki should not be in the NetAlly giveaway.
I was going to say, I saw Dan Klimke and Mike Panaki in there. Maybe this new guy ought to get both those slots if it lands on one of those.
Take out Dan. Dan is also somebody I should probably thank. Works for NetAlly and is my rep, I think. You guys got rid of my Sham Wow girl. So let's see here. And there's a name in here. I think I misspelled some names. Let's see here. Got that one. Got that one. Got that one. Ah, Patchery Kemsadi. That's it. So that's in there. And there we go. All right. So here we are, folks. Let me share with you the wheel of names. And we'll do one last spin here for the NetAlly bag o' stuff. And here we go. Kyle Kenyon is the second winner. So Kyle, you will be getting a bag of stuff, and that'll come directly from NetAlly. Oh, and I didn't share the window. Oh, well. I will not edit it out for those of you listening to the audio podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for attending the first ever Podnutz Pro live podcast and demo with NetAlly. I want to thank James Kakoska, the Chief Technology Officer for NetAlly, who has been a part of the team from the very beginning, back when it was Fluke. And I know, folks, that we did a very quick run through of both the LinkRunner G2 and the Etherscope NXG, but I do want to tell you, these are fantastic tools. And again, I'll show you. I used to carry around, when I first got started with the Link Sprinter and then the LinkRunner, then I got the One Touch, and my daily driver bag was the One Touch and the LinkRunner. So now I'm actually going to be carrying around, I've got to figure out a way to do the bag so that I can carry around the Etherscope and the LinkRunner G2. One other good thing we did not talk about real quick, and the reason I carry both or two devices around is because part of the performance testing is you can set the LinkRunner G2 up as a reflector. So if you need to push traffic back and forth over a cable, over a network, you can prove that the stuff will work. The Etherscope will work as a peer to the One Touch. So if you have a One Touch and you're looking for, another device that you don't want to get another One Touch, but you want to get an Etherscope because of all the new features, get that, and you can still do your performance testing there. And that is going to end off the live show here. Those of you hanging out, stay around and we'll get some additional questions answered. But for the rest of you, I want to say thank you. And good night. Check the show notes for all of the links and everything on Podnutz Pro. And until next time, holla.